everyone, hope you're all doing really well and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Clockwork Dynasty. So Clockwork Dynasty is the latest in books that I have picked up because I'm having a bit of a sort of steampunk, clockworky sort of phase at the moment. About a month ago I was just like, I really want to read some steampunky type books, and this one was recommended to me. It's not really a steampunk book as such, but it has very, like, you know, it's about clockwork and sort of, like, you know, clockwork robots, sort of people that are alive and things, and yeah, it was a really fun concept. It follows June, who's an anthropologist who specialises in, like, ancient technology and clockwork sort of bits and pieces, and she has this relic that her grandfather gave her, and she sort of kept it on her whole life and stuff. She hasn't really mentioned it to anybody, and then one day she sort of just let slip about it to one of her colleagues, and turns out that actually lots of people are after this specific relic, and since this guy then knows about it and somebody else overhears, all of a sudden she's got these people kind of coming after her trying to get that relic off of her. And it prompts, you know, lots of shady people to come after her. She runs into this man called Peter who rescues her from one of the sort of, you know, dangerous folk that come after her. And he sort of, you know, through sort of meeting him, she sort of finds out that there's actually a lot more to her world than she thought. This was a super fun read. It has some really interesting world building concepts. You've sort of got this idea of like these sort of clockwork people who look like humans and talk like humans, but they're like, you know, they're artificial intelligence and stuff like that sort of thing. They just have a really interesting history to them and their culture and who, like, how they were built in the first place and stuff. I really, really did enjoy reading about them and the history behind them. The format of this book is that you follow two perspectives. You follow June, who's sort of in modern day, and then you also follow Peter, who she meets, but you follow him in the past. You never actually see his point of view in the future, you only ever follow June, and I thought it was a really interesting idea to have sort of like the main sort of events almost happening with June in the modern day, but then following Peter's point of view in the past, so you almost get exposition and explanation from that, but not quite as exposition. It doesn't feel like an info dump. You are following his backstory basically in the past, and you understand why he is where he is when you meet him with June, and sort of you're slowly sort of getting all the information that June's getting, but then you're also seeing it at the same time. You know, Peter's story is like the second story to June's that basically explains everything that's happening in the future that you see with her. I did find Peter's story to be a bit more compelling. All the historical stuff with him and his sister Elena, I did find them to be a bit more interesting than June. You know, they do just felt like more rounded characters and stuff than June did, and I don't know, I just really liked the historical stuff with Peter. I did just find that to be slightly more interesting than stuff with June, but I did still really enjoy the things that you did see with her. However, I did like what the author did do with June. You know, you see a lot of Peter and, you know, how he was sort of activated and all this sort of bits and pieces, but then with June you actually know very little about her past that she's, you know she's an anthropologist, you know that she was close with her grandfather, he gave her this relic. That's kind of all you ever really know about her. The rest of her characterization, obviously you see in the story through her actions and the way that she behaves in the story to all the things that are happening to her, plus how she changes and develops across the story and develops as a character. But, you know, I couldn't tell you what she does when she's not working, what her family's like. Does she have any siblings? What is her relationship with her parents? I don't even really know how old she is. You just know that she's young, you know, but at the same time, you don't need to know all that information. You just need to know who she is as a character, what her motivations are, how she's going to react in situations. You still feel like you know this character, but it's just a very zoomed in focus of her, and I really liked seeing that. It's not something I see too often. It's really interesting. But of the two of them, again though, I did just kind of find Peter to be a little bit more compelling and likeable, but I did still really like June. It's a standalone book and it doesn't drag on too much. I think it was really well paced. The characters kind of jump from place to place all over the world and stuff, but you feel like there's reason for them sort of travelling around a lot, you know. They're sort of trying to piece together lots of different clues and have to go see other different people whilst all the while sort of on the run from all the folk that are after them. You know, it just flowed quite well. I did find the ending though to be quite anticlimactic and quite sort of loads and loads of things happening all at once, and then almost like there's resolution to it, but at the same time there's no resolution to it. It was just kind of, I don't know, I just kind of expected more from the ending. The villains of the story were really great. I loved their motivations and the explanation for the way that they behaved and their backstories and stuff. Like, I thought they were really interesting, and again, just sort of, you get drip fed kind of the backstory behind the villains and why, you know, they are the villains of the story and the antagonists. You know, you sort of get drip fed that, and sort of when you sort of find out the whole story and stuff, I did find that to be really, really fun and interesting. I like the themes in this book, sort of, there's like themes of like identity and almost like the meaning of life and purpose at times, without it feeling too philosophical and heavy-handed with those sorts of ideas. You know, I thought they were brought up really well, especially with something like artificial intelligence and stuff, and like, you know, clockwork people and things. You know, I did find that sort of whole idea to be really interesting and quite well delved into and discussed, as I said, without it feeling like a really heavy-handed philosophical discussion about the purpose of life and the meaning of life. I really liked Peter's sister Elena as well. She's a really cool character. I found her to be really interesting too. And I liked their dynamic as a sort of brother-sister sort of duo. Without spoilers, I love the history of the Clockwork people, sort of where they came from, how they were built, and the mysteries almost behind that. And I loved all the world building that went into them, and then how they evolved over the centuries and stuff, and how they got to sort of the group of people that you see them as now in the modern day. I just thought it was really well thought out. The authors clearly sort of like, you know, thought about how these people would change and evolve, especially with sort of humanity changing and evolving and stuff. You know, I did really, really like all that world building. So yeah, overall just a really great, fun story. Not the most amazing thing I've ever read in my entire life, but it's definitely enjoyable. I read it quite quickly. I found the historical stuff from Peter's point of view to be the most interesting, but I still did like the modern stuff with June, and it was really interesting to see a main character that you know very little about past the characterisation you see on the page. I thought it was really fun to have that sort of zoomed in focus on her. Both main characters were really good, they had a really good dynamic when they are together, and yeah, it was just overall quite a good story. 3 out of 5 sort of stars, 4 stars maybe, you know, as I said, not the most amazing thing I've ever read in my life, but well written and well paced. Thank you so much for watching. Have you read Clockwork Dynasty? What did you think? Have you read any of the author's other books? Are they any good? So, you know, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you reached the end of this video, feel free to give this a like, and as I said, leave a comment below, and feel free to subscribe. I post once or twice a week. Things are a bit hectic at the moment. I'm sort of readjusting my schedule because I'm going back to university. The sports club that I'm involved in is all go at the moment. I feel like that's a full-time job at the moment. So I'm trying to find sort of time to film at the moment. It's a bit interesting, but I'm hoping to sort of get into a rhythm once classes start, and classes will be starting this week coming. So I should be back to my 2 times a week schedule, but I am going to be shifting that from Tuesdays and Fridays to Wednesdays and Saturdays. Just gives me a couple more days in the week if I'm filming at the weekend to get things edited and uploaded. So yeah, so feel free to subscribe. I will be posting at least twice a week, hopefully moving forward. But yeah, but thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.